Do you? I do too. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? That'd be really cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the main arena here at Wicksteed, to the start of Wicksteed at War 2015, the third day of the same. A very warm welcome from the organisers here at Wicksteed Park, a great Wicksteed Park. Imagine what it's like to have the clutches of these things under your control. Steering is via two tillers. There's no steering wheel as such. You steer by braking the two tracks independently of each other. The machines, of course, have a big gun on their turrets, a coaxial 7.62 machine gun, also as part of the turret armament. There could be smoke discharges, banks of four on either side of the turret roofs. And these are part of the Albus fighting vehicle. CDRT display begin and get us going for Wicksteed at War. A smaller 30mm autocannon. You'll see a scimitar later on this afternoon. These machines were used largely for reconnaissance purposes, so they were swift into the front lines of whatever theatre of war they were deployed to. They weigh about 8 tons, and because of their lightweight, with that 190 brake horsepower engine, they were able to get swiftly into position to allow reconnaissance to take place, to get the information of what was going on the forward lines with the enemy, and to then get out quickly once again. Low ground pressure from these vehicles because of their tracks means that, as you can see, they don't really churn up the ground, so they can cross the terrain that other heavier vehicles perhaps can't. Now, the three-man crew is only protected against machine gun fire, so if ever they were hit by something really heavy, it didn't do an awful lot to protect them. And that's why, in the armed forces, these machines were affectionately described as having chocolate armour. These tanks can go as fast forwards as they can go backwards. So with their manual gearboxes, and you'll see it in a moment or two, they can reverse out of danger very quickly indeed. They're small enough to be put inside a C-130 Hercules aircraft and to be parachuted out on drop pads. In the Scorpion with the slightly smaller flag, and Andy Baker in the other Scorpion machine. And if you were to turn up at your local petrol station and fill up, same speed, forward and backwards, same maximum speed. And these are 5.9 litre or 5.3 litre Cummins diesel diesel engines powering these particular machines. Mick Browning's machine is called Betsy, and she made her first appearance here at Wicksteed in 2013. She was part of the Royal Tournament in December of that year, and she's also part of the Alvis fighting vehicle demonstrations. She was totally rebuilt from spare parts. In June of 2013, she was just a bare hull. Then she was built and prepared, and within 6 months was on display. Stands for Demountable Rack Offload and Pickup System, and you're going to see an offload and a pickup over the course of the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. Now this is Rob Bailey bringing into the arena his Foden machine. And earlier on this weekend, it took the award for Best in Show. This is a competitive event for the enthusiasts and the operators of these machines who lovingly restore them, bring them back to life, and indeed bring them out to display to you at events like this. He gave it a major restore when he first got it from the armed forces, and he's had this particular machine for years. Drops was operated by the British Army as a means of saving time to load and unload and to reduce operating costs. And as you'll see, ladies and gentlemen, there's Rob Bailey, and only Rob Bailey, that performs his display today. On the back of his truck is a 432 armoured personnel carrier. It weighs quite a lot. Specifically about 13 tons all up weight. Normally it has a two-man crew, and it can carry up to 10 fully armed troops in the back. It would have one machine gun on the commander's cupola, and it too, rather like the and undertaking the delivery of the 432. Imagine that the armoured personnel carrier was either being delivered to the front line or perhaps was arriving for maintenance work. There is a large hook on the back of the truck which engages with the vertical arm, the pillar, on the flatbed, which is now being deposited to the ground very gently, very controlled, and as you see, as the flatbed touches the ground, the truck will start to inch very slowly forward as the hydraulic rams continue to extend. 13 tons of armoured personnel carrier and an 8x8 Foden with a 6-speed gearbox and a 350 brake horsepower diesel engine. It can carry 15 tons, so it's pretty close to its all-up loaded weight this afternoon. It can also pull a trailer at the same time, and I will say once again, Rob Bailey is doing all of this single-handed. Doesn't need any other crew. You can see the speed, therefore, with which 14 tons of payload can be delivered. So the truck continues to inch forward, and in a moment the flatbed will have made full contact with the ground and will be flat to it. As it does, the hook will disengage, allowing the truck, the Foden, to move out of the way. And then ordinarily, the chains would be released, the 432 would be taken off the flatbed, and it would then be put into active service, or if it was being returned for repair, perhaps to the Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers. Tremendous capability with the suspension of this truck, although you can't see it here at Wicksteed because of the beautifully even surface that we're running on today. Those are fully independent wheels and they can twist and turn in all kinds of directions. Good Lord, there's 4 mascots up there with Rob Bailey. They've been multiplying this weekend. So, steering from the front 4 wheels. Rob now takes up position, and as you can imagine, it's the precision of the driving which is all important in being able to quickly reverse and bring to a conclusion the retrieval of the 432, which is now what you're going to see. So Rob reversing back very gently. The hook has already been deployed. It will engage with the vertical structure on the flatbed, and that's the load handling system, so that's about to happen. Contact is made. And the load lift starts. So it's a straight reversal of what happened before. And this time, the truck very gently edges backwards as the hydraulic rams extend fully. Can you hear the creaking of the metal? Don't worry, the 432 is very securely chained to the flatbed. It is not going to run away. So the Foden is now getting into position, ready to receive the flatbed onto its rollers at the back. You might just hear a little bit of metallic noise as that happens. Over the tipping point, and the flatbed rolls onto the back of the Foden. Remember, this could all be done in war conditions, so speed is of the essence. That's 1 minute since the 432 started to point skywards again. 1 minute to lift 14 tons. Back into position, the hydraulics almost completely retrieved, and as is the 432. And having done so, away goes Rob Bailey. One man, 14 tons, at about 90 seconds is all it takes. Quite remarkable, ladies and gentlemen. Rob Bailey and the Drops Demountable team. Demountable rack, offload and pickup system. Now Rob will be about later on this afternoon. You'll be able to find him very easily, because believe me, that Foden and its 432 doesn't rather tend to stick out with all the other vehicles here at Wicksteed this weekend. He's got quite a collection of vehicles to his name. He's got a very heavy Antar lift machine. He's also got a huge 155mm howitzer cannon, which is also here this weekend. What a fantastic machine, ladies and gentlemen. Flown by one of the Lancaster captains.
You're going to go turn around?
Seb Davey, as part of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. This machine is very, very important indeed to the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, not only because it's a display aircraft, but abilities on this aircraft before they are allowed loose on the 4-engined Lancaster. So the Dakota, very important piece of machinery. Built by Douglas, this particular machine was built in March of 1944 and issued to the United States Army Air Force in September of that year. Now the markings on this aircraft are original to the D-Day landings. The Battle of Britain Memorial Flight got hold of it in 1993 after the Royal Aircraft establishment. The aircraft was also given a new rear door, and if you look up and look carefully as the aircraft overflies, ladies and gentlemen, you'll find that there's a loadmaster in the back, waving frantically to say hello. These are extremely rare aircraft, ladies and gentlemen. A few of them still survive. It is the Willie MB Jeep.
All the way over to near that car, and then...
And Anxious Neil, wearing the pink, is delighted that it's back safe and sound, because this is his machine, I believe. Well done, you did that very well. Equivalent of the Willie Jeep. Willie's Overland Motors couldn't produce enough MB machines, so the United States government decided that the Ford Motor Company should help out. And it produced the Ford GPW, which looks identical, and there's a reason for that. The idea was that every part on both machines would be interchangeable. Now this is beautifully prepared, as you can see, in United States colours with the white star. All of the parts on that machine will fit onto the Willy machine, which you saw just a few moments ago. The idea was that would make things a lot easier in the field. Jeeps were supplied to both America. They came up with their own design, and this is it. They thought that it would be better if they produced the British Champ, which, as you can see, is hurtling around the main arena this afternoon. The Austin Motor Company produced 13,000 versions of this machine to come up with one original. John Underwood is the man who campaigns it, and he's looking for tyres, because the original tyres are now unavailable. It's running on them at the moment, so if you happen to know anybody with Champ tyres, we'd like you to get in touch. The French did have their own version of the Jeep. It was called a Hotchkiss, and it was absolutely a copy of the Willy Jeep. It was otherwise known as La Jeep. But what you're looking at just out with Westaway Motors, who are here at Wicksteed this weekend. Now coming into the arena is the CJ5, which is a civilian model of the Jeep. This was never designed to be a military machine, and yet, when the Swiss realised that it was around, being a neutral country, they decided they would take a civilian version of a military machine and use it for their military services. And this particular one, what is this coming to the arena right now? Looks like a kit car, doesn't it? Well, it isn't. It's something rather different. It's called a Jeepster, and after the war, Willys Overland needed to diversify and produce something that was a little bit more for the civilian market. So they built this. Between 1948 and 1950, they built the Jeepster. Very smooth, very quiet. Look how big the exhaust pipe is on it. A few saw active service in Korea as staff cars. Just under 20,000 were built. This particular machine was found on eBay by its owner, Graham Beck. It's been part restored. It's yet to be completed to restore their reputations. Whilst the Champ was being developed, Rover were working on something which would become the Land Rover. Effectively, the British Army went for the Champ, but then returned to the cheaper Land Rover when they found that there was an alternative. And this is where the history of the Land Rover develops. Now, the British Army has used the Land Rover since the 1990s with an expected service life of about 12 years per machine. And the Army tends to buy various series that Land Rover produces, but they then rename them. We call them the Defender. The Defender is a 1993 Defender, which went into service until 2013, in desert style. This particular machine was involved and has a coloration for Operation Granby, which was Gulf War I, which of course took place in 1991. And as it comes gently past you, you can see some of the equipment that it had. A soft top. You can see the crawler board, which was used to put under the driving wheels so that it could go across sand and soft ground. And this one is driven by Peter, who originally owned a Jeep, but decided he wanted something a bit more reliable and with a bit better roof. So still known as the Defender 110. You can see the radio communications equipment on the front, the aerials, powered by 24-volt electric, so the rest of the car was 24 electric as well. You can see the snorkel on the left wing, which allowed it to go through watery conditions. And there's somebody inside the passenger seat in full NBC kit. They are going to be very hot indeed, ladies and gentlemen, I assure you. There's always one. Step out of line and the military police will be after you. So here, just to keep everybody else company, is another short wheelbase hard-top Land Rover. I don't know how many more of these we can take. We'll be out of space in the arena very soon. And then to round off this particular generation of the Land Rover, you can see a slightly longer wheelbase, 110.
That's an ambulance.
Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen, I have no detail about this machine whatsoever, so I can't tell you anything other than it's green, it's got a longer wheelbase, and it is a 110 version.
Why is it not moving? Oh yeah, because it's a traffic jam.
And now we return to the plot, ladies and gentlemen, because into the arena comes the white Land Rover ambulance, built in 1970. Most of its army life was spent here in the UK, but as you can see, the Red Cross and the designation UN meant that this particular machine was taken into UN service and was sent to the Middle East. The idea being to be highly visible to all sides and all participants as an evacuation vehicle and as an ambulance. It was painted as you see it today. You can see, in fact, the blue UN insignia on the back. This is one of only 3 that still exist in private hands. So that's the white Land Rover ambulance from 1970. Behind it, also with the blue flashing lights, is the modern day equivalent, and this is still in active service as a vehicle. Not this particular one, but the design of the vehicle. Still in service, this time painted in olive green colours, but still with the ambulance designation. Breathing apparatus could also be used. And now we come up to rather more modern day machineries. This is a Land Rover WMIK, WMIK, weapons mount installation kit, built on a Wolf 110. 2 examples of that being shown here this weekend. Perhaps widely seen through the camera lenses of the media around the world, used by the Army, the Royal Marines and the Special Forces during the invasion of Iraq and the Afghanistan war in 2003. The WMIK, as you can see, has very little in the way of bodywork. It is stripped down for weight. When the bodywork is taken off, a roll cage is added in, and then weapons mounts are installed. In the centre of the roll cage is a ring where a gunner can stand, and that gun can then be traversed round. So that's the WMIK.
Oh yeah, but
High manoeuvrable, high speed, in and out, used extensively by the Special Forces. And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, coming in, this is something very special indeed, called the Snatch Land Rover. Used by the British forces since the 1990s and before the Wolf, they've also used other 110 Defender cars. The Snatch went into service in 1992 and it had a particular purpose. It was developed as a patrol vehicle for use in Northern Ireland. It got its name from being used to snatch protesters and ringleaders from the street. Now, unlike other Land Rovers, the Snatch was fitted with armour. It gave some protection against small arms fire and fragmentation from hand grenades. It was also quite handy from protesters' missiles. The windows were covered. See a couple of examples representing the armed forces in that large roof, so they could stand and observe their surroundings and, if necessary, fire their SA-80 rifles. Some of these